I just completed the Run Disney Dopey Challenge for Marathon Weekend, 4 races, 4 days, and I finished feeling strong, durable, and completely pain-free. And that did not happen by accident. If you've ever watched dopey runners limp through the parks afterward, or you wondered how anyone can run 48.6 miles across 4 days in the most magical place on earth without falling apart, this episode is for you, because today I'm breaking down exactly how I trained, fueled, recovered, and executed this weekend so I could race all 4 events and still feel confident at the finish line. And this is not just my story. Throughout this episode, you're also going to hear about runners just like you, athletes from our community who conquered all 48.6 miles at RunDisney Marathon Weekend and finished feeling strong, healthy, and proud of what their bodies can do. This is just not a race recap. This is really a case study in what happens when you stop guessing and start training with structure. So let's get into it. And if you're new to the show, everything we teach you here falls into 6 key parts of your running journey. And when you execute all 6, this is how you stay healthy, get stronger, and run the best races. Those 6 parts are mindset, strength training, run plan, nutrition, recovery, and race strategy. And today's episode, I'm filling your race strategy bucket with everything I learned from this Dopey Challenge experience. Just so you know, there is a freebie download that comes with this episode, which is my ultimate marathon training guide to master your marathon feeling strong. It covers marathon mindset, training plans, base building, strength training, marathon training for beginners, advanced marathon training, mistakes to avoid, marathon nutrition, marathon recovery, race day strategy, as well as marathon gear recommendations. Get your download, learn.sparkhealthyrunner.com/marathon. And if we haven't met yet, I'm Dr. Dwayne Scotty. I'm a physical therapist and running coach. And after years teaching future PTs, I now focus full-time on helping runners train smarter, stay healthy, and actually enjoy the process. And that perspective is exactly how I approached training for and executing the Dopey Challenge. Before we get into race week and all the Disney chaos, I want to show you actually what made this weekend possible. And it starts with how I trained leading into the Dopey Challenge. So what did my training look like leading into this challenge, and how did I actually stay healthy? For context, this was my 7th marathon and 2nd Dopey Challenge. I did a hard marathon training cycle for the Philadelphia Marathon 6 weeks prior to this challenge. So the main focus was to recover from the training block, then build back up safely and do some Dopey specific training. So after Philly, I took 1 week completely off of running. And that is necessary. That's what I recommend for all marathons. Even if your body feels good, like, trust me, my body feels amazing this week. Could I go out for a run? Did I want to go out for a run? Maybe a little part of me did, but it is essential after a marathon, at least 7 days of no running, no matter how good you think your legs feel and your body feels. It is just essential. I see so many runners getting injured right after their marathon, not during peak week, not during the race, but 3 weeks, 4 weeks after their marathon. So 1 week completely off of running, even though I only had 6 weeks before Dopey. And then I really looked at 4 weeks of training and then 1 week of taper in this kind of training block. So my miles per week, just to give you a little context, was no miles, right? That first week of rest recovery, 17 miles the first week back. Second week was 42 miles, really getting back up to pretty much where my baseline was heading into Philly. So I did 17, 42, 45, 56, 44, and including in that time was a 7-day period that I was actually really proud of myself and my body for how it responded to, because my daughter had a volleyball tournament that was in the morning wave. It's like, we had to leave the house at pretty much 5:30 a.m. And I wasn't going to get up and do my long runs before then, even though that would have been good practice before Disney, I guess, running at 3 a.m. But I did 67 miles in 7 straight days, really with kind of shifting my back-to-back long runs up to a Thursday, Friday that week. So I was a little nervous about that because I definitely never did that much mileage in a 7-day period. But I felt totally fine. I was really like happy, provided some confidence heading into this week's race challenge. And the key here and Dopey specific training is mastering the back-to-back long runs. And that's what's really different from what I did in my Philly training cycle. So I did really 4 weeks of back-to-back long runs. Week 1 was a 12-miler followed by a 10-miler. Week 2 was a 15-miler followed by a 12-miler. And that 12-miler was a big snowstorm. This was right after Christmas. Terrible road conditions. There was no way I could get outside. I had to do 12 miles on the treadmill, 2-hour run on the treadmill, my longest ever run on the treadmill. I was actually proud of myself for actually doing that and completing that. And it gave me some good like heat training for Disney, which actually, honestly, in retrospect, was very helpful for this weekend's race because all these races were on the hotter side for Disney. Last couple of years, it's been cooler, colder. This year, the heat was there and the heat was definitely a factor. So I did 2 hours, 12-miler on the treadmill. Week 3, I did an 18-miler. That was essentially my peak long run. Notice how I didn't even do a 20 because when you do these back-to-back long runs, you don't necessarily need to do a 20. And I already did a couple of 20s before my Philly marathon. So it wasn't a matter of like, am I going to finish 26.2? I knew I could. So 18 with a 14. And because of more snow, we had a terrible December here in Connecticut. Very, very cold. Colder than normally is in December, and we had a lot of little snowstorms. So the roads were terrible. So for both of those runs, the 18-miler and the 14-miler, I did on a treadmill, which is just like mind-blowing for me because I never ever run on a treadmill. But this was like training mental mindset and mental resiliency for Dopey training because that was really hard for me to be able to do that long on a treadmill. It was like single-digit temperatures outside. Snow was not great. And in that 18-miler, what I did is I did 3 miles, or I did 3 by 2 miles at a little less than marathon effort for the 18. So this was like my first kind of easier, I guess, long run with spice. I did a lot longer tempos in a long run or long runs with spice in my Philly kind of build. But again, here I need to ease my body back into it after recovery from Philly. I wanted to do a long run that was 3 hours long and actually add some faster pace work in it. Plus, it actually allowed my mind to like tolerate the treadmill for 18 miles. So that was like a big weekend. Super proud after I accomplished that 18 and 14 miler. And then week 4, which was kind of a taper week there, it was a 12-miler and then an 8-miler. So that was the weekend actually before the races. Again, in a traditional build, if you are training for Dopey, you're not going to have like that, 2 weeks out, do like an 18 and a 14. But for me, it's like I was stretched out because I already did a marathon 6 weeks prior. This was not my first rodeo. I've already done Dopey before. This was my 7th marathon. So just kind of putting that in context. If this is your first time training for Dopey, first marathon, second marathon, this isn't what the training would look like for you, but I'm just kind of sharing my story for those that have been following my personal journey and have been kind of seeing these race recaps for the last, 5 or 6 years since I've been putting these out, just to kind of see my progress because this training was definitely more demanding than the first time I did Dopey. And for that 12-miler, I actually did 4 straight miles at marathon effort, and I did this one outside. It was definitely colder, but I really wanted to get my legs feeling like doing a long run, picking up the pace, actually out on the roads. So I did that. Again, I was a little bit like mental resiliency training because that was hard to do. It was like super cold that day. I had like my face shield on, I had my mittens on, but I was ready to go. I was ready to do like hard things, training for Dopey. I was kind of pumped up. And this was like a great mental challenge to get the most out of really the cold weather that we had and a lot of treadmill runs, and the most treadmill runs that I did in a 4-week period than I've ever done in my life. So looking at speed work, in addition to the long runs that I talked about, back-to-back long runs, this is where speed work looks a little different in this kind of training block leading up. I did basically strides twice a week. So that was just some easier, faster pace faster pace running at the end of an easy run. And then really for me, these were like easier tempo runs than like what I did in Philly. So like the first week of speed coming out of recovery was a 5 by 3 minutes at threshold pace. Week 2 was 3 by 4 minutes at threshold, and then 3 by 2 minutes at 10K pace, and then 3 by 1 minute at 5K pace. So it's like, well, my coach staff likes to program some variety. I like it going at different paces, but you're really keeping that effort at about a 7 out of 10 RPE scale during this speed work. And then week 3 was holding a little bit longer. So we actually held 5 minutes at threshold pace and repeated that 4 times, and then did 5 by 1 minute at 5K pace. So just getting the legs turning over a little bit more. Many of these runs were also on the treadmill because road conditions were not good for me to like run faster, get the legs turning over, but they were like very sweaty runs. And again, it did help me with kind of like adapting to heat because the races were all in the heat. And that's what's tough is like if you live in a cold weather city or cold weather town and you're training for Dopey, you're doing like the majority of your peak running in colder weather. But when you go down to Orlando, there are some years that it can be hot. And this was one of those years that it was hot. And if you're already getting value from this, hit the like button and subscribe so you don't miss future videos that can help you get stronger, run faster, and stay healthy. And this is the important part because this approach is not just what worked for me. It is the same structure we use with our runners every day who are trying to come back from an injury and build durability. Let me share a quick story with you about Brian because his journey mirrors what so many runners experience. Brian was new to running, and early on, he started dealing with knee pain from IT band issues. Like most runners, he didn't know what, a lot of people do. He tried to figure it out on his own. He searched online. He watched YouTube videos. He tried random exercises and hoped something would stick, but nothing really changed because there was no structure and no clear plan. Eventually, he did reach out to me after seeing one of my videos on my YouTube channel about IT band syndrome and started working with me one-on-one through coaching. And at that point, he could barely get to 1.5 miles before his knee pain would totally shut him down. Over the next 4 months that we worked together, we focused on rebuilding his body the right way with progressive strength work, smart run walk progressions, and realistic expectations about what healing and progress actually look like. And that is where everything started to turn around for Brian. And by the end of those initial 4 months, he was running over 6 miles and even completed a timed 10K that might not sound like huge to some people, but when you start from not being able to run more than 1 mile without pain, this was like a massive breakthrough. And what really made the difference was not just the workouts, it was the structure, the guidance, and accountability. Brian did the work, but he did not have to guess on what to do or wonder if he was making things worse. And after our 4 months of working with me, now that he was healthy, he transitioned to working with Coach Kat on our team so he could keep building that foundation and actually train for the Dopey Challenge. This was his first marathon, and he also got guidance from the registered dietitian on our team, Brooke, who really helped him out on the nutritional side of things. And, that he actually had a plan to follow instead of doing like more random advice from the internet. And now Brian is not just back to running. He just conquered something he never thought was possible before, his first marathon and Dopey Challenge. I loved meeting Brian down in Disney. We actually met up before the half marathon race, and then we met up on Metal Monday to kind of chat. And it's so nice when I ever get to meet someone I work with virtually in person. And this is what happens when you stop guessing and start training with the right structure and support. So now that the foundation is in place, let's fast forward to RunDisney Marathon Weekend itself, because how you handle race week matters just as much as how you train. So looking at Wednesday, which is Expo Day, we got to the ESPN Wide World of Sports complex early because last time we did this 2 years ago, we actually did the virtual queue from our rooms and then we traveled to the Expo. This year, we wanted to like literally be there physically at the Expo in case we did get an early queue time. And then, so we were there a little earlier to pick up our bibs because last time we remember waiting in a super duper long line for like an hour or two before we even got our bibs. So we really wanted to kind of hop on the virtual queue for that Disney merch, for the Disney shoes, the RunDisney shoes, while we were actually physically there. And the scene was, initially it was like empty because we got there super early. We didn't rely on the bus transportation from the resort because that only runs 30 minutes prior. So we actually just like took an Uber, got there super early. We were like ready to go. It was like empty initially, but then the scene was like madness. And when it opened up just before 10 a.m., it was kind of like park opening, like rope drop. If you're used to going to the parks where there's just herds of people being like kind of cattled in. And if you want to avoid the crowds and you don't care much about Disney merch and you don't care about the shoes or getting the best shirts or gear, then I highly recommend going to the Expo later on Wednesday or one of the other days because you will see the crowds are much, much less. We actually went back on Friday to pick up my daughter's bib because she was only doing the half marathon and she came in Thursday night from college. And, I got, that day was just so much less people, like less crowded. You'll be able to see some of that in some of the footage I took, that it's less chaotic and it is a lot less stressful. So that was like a cool, chill vibe. It was like totally different vibe on that day. And so I got my bib, then I took my like photo with Dopey, which wasn't that long because like I said, we were like one of the first ones there at kind of rope drop. So that was kind of fun to get my photo with Dopey because those lines are always super long because there are so many people who are doing the Dopey challenge. And this is like step one of getting your bib in that first building, which is kind of toward the back to the left. And then you're herded like cattle out of there in like a long line. You don't walk like the shortest path to like the next building. You actually walk around like all of the fields, which is kind of like interesting because they're just trying to like delay, I guess, massive people entering that second building. So you walk through like all the fields, the soccer fields, you head to that next building where you get your race shirts, which is what I'm wearing here, in another building. And that's where you get to take your photos with like each of the numbers of your race. So whether you're doing 48.6, you're doing 26.2, there are these little lines and cues for the 5K, 10K, half marathon, whatever distance. You see some of the other vendors, and then you exchange your shirts if the sizing is off. And I would highly recommend this, by the way, for you to try your shirts on at the Expo. For the Dopey Challenge, you get 6 shirts like this, all different colors. I tried each of them on because there was like 2 of them that were like super duper tight fitting. So it's like weird, you would think they all fit the same. They don't. And what is nice, they actually have a nice shirt exchange depending upon availability. Where you can actually exchange. So I exchanged a couple of my shirts. So there are a couple of my shirts I'm like medium in, a couple that I'm a large in. And, that is a nice little perk about Disney that they do allow that for you to kind of exchange your shirts. So just so you know, I would highly recommend, even though it's like, especially trying 6 shirts, it's like really annoying. It's not like what you want to do. It was worth it because I would have been kind of mad if like the other shirts, didn't really fit or I couldn't really use them or wear them after. So after we did the whole shirt exchange thing, it's always great to chat with Jeff Galloway, the man, the myth, the legend of the run, walk, run method. And I actually spoke with him. I met him 2 years prior at the Expo, and then he actually came on the podcast to share his knowledge about the run, walk, run method. I thanked him for the value that he provided in that episode 215 on the Healthy Runner podcast. And I know you guys loved it because it currently has 23,000 views on the Spark Healthy Runner YouTube channel. So I was just thanking him for that, all of his knowledge. We got a lot of great questions in the comments on that video. And he also provided some of his Jeff magic and inspiration for my second Dopey. He actually wrote right on the back of my bib here. He wrote, "You can do it." And he signed my bib. So that was actually the mantra I used in the later phases of the marathon, because he literally wrote it on the bib that I was running in. So it kind of stuck in my head. By the way, like, stay tuned for the next episode with Jeff, as he has agreed to come back on the show to share some of his recovery wisdom following his latest injury that he suffered after an unexpected fall just before he was about to run the Honolulu Marathon at age 80, which is like truly remarkable, that he was ready to go, trained for another marathon. So he's just such an inspiration. I think you guys will really, really enjoy his perspective on overcoming obstacles, overcoming injuries, because I know a lot of you guys who are following this, was struggling with Achilles pain, hamstring pain, IT band pain, shin splints. So I think you'll get a lot of inspiration from Jeff. So stay tuned. That will be coming soon. And like I mentioned in episode 290 on the podcast on how to prepare for the RunDisney Marathon Weekend and your race week essentials for dopey runners, you have to bring snacks and water with you to the Expo if you're going on that Wednesday, or really like to stop at all the booths in the Expo. You can lose like a good 4 to 6 hours. Just time flies by. So it's critical that you are starting your carb load. If you're running the marathon, you're hydrating before that marathon race. So, I got my Mickey pretzel. I brought my snacks with me. I had my water with me. I had a protein drink with me. So you got to come prepared. You got to bring a backpack when you go to that Expo day. And quick side note, if you're training for Run Disney, I have a full Run Disney playlist here on YouTube that walks you through training, racing, and staying healthy for the long run. And if you're listening on the podcast, be sure to check the show notes for the related episodes that I've linked. And after we were done with the Expo, it was almost our time to be called for the virtual queue for the RunDisney merch, which we were excited about, even though we got on the virtual queue literally the minute it opened. That morning within the app, our callback time was about 3 hours later, and it kept getting pushed back because of the delay with the Dopey merch line. So this year they tried something different in that you had to show proof of either your bib or on your app, your Dopey registration in order to purchase Dopey merch. So the Dopey merch was separate. There was a line for it. That line was super long. I was on that line for a good hour and a half. So other people are shopping throughout all the other Disney merch. The Dopey runners are waiting in this long line to have the ability to purchase only 4 items. And unfortunately, the sweatshirts were already out by the time I got there. So those weren't even available. I had the choice between a cotton t-shirt, a tech t-shirt, which is the one I got, a pin, a magnet, which is right back here. You can see my little magnet. And then also displayed here are all the medals that you will get for the challenge. And then here's the Dopey one. So you get your 6 medals for that Dopey challenge. And medals are awesome. But the merch line, a lot of people were unhappy. It was a lot of waiting. It wasn't the most efficient way to do it. Run Disney is trying to help prevent the resellers from buying all the Dopey merch and then selling it on eBay, which has been a problem in the past. So this was one step in the right direction, but it was very inefficient because the line took so long, because there was only 2 or 3 people, maybe 5, that could go up at the counter at a time. So hopefully that improves in the future. But that was the reason that line got all backed up. So all the Club Run Disney membership folks who get in early for Platinum Gold, it was all delayed. So then it delayed the virtual queue for the everyday folks, the common man, like myself. So that was the reason why I was super delayed on that first day. Again, hopefully in the future, it gets more efficient in how they kind of handle that process. But the Expo, it's an exhausting experience, guys. You're on your feet for a lot. We were there for literally 6.5 hours. And I was just happy that this was not the day before the half marathon or the marathon, because that would not be good for getting off your feet before a marathon. So after that, relaxed in the hot tub for a little bit at our resort, went to dinner at Summer House, had a great pasta dish with sausage and some Pomodoro red sauce. So it was just perfect little meal. Now, once the expo was done, it was time to shift gears from preparation mode to execution mode. And that started with the 5K, which is our Thursday or our 5K day. And the weather was actually the coolest day of the four for this day, but was still hot going for me at race effort at 59 degrees and a 58-degree dew point. And the goal was to run a hard effort for me since I was in Corral A. So I was kind of super pumped about that. Last time for the 5K and the 10K, they put me in Corral D, I think just because I was running Dopey, and then I was in like Corral B for the half and the full. But this time I was in Corral A, so I was very excited about that. And I talked with my coach about if I could like actually race the 5K and then not hinder my performance of the marathon. She was in like full agreement, especially with like the 2 days of recovery in between, taking those races a little bit easier. Last time I did the Dopey challenge, I ran the 5K easy. 10K was like a tempo run effort because I ran it with my daughter. So that pace was about like a normal tempo run effort, 7 out of 10 RPE scale for me. And then the half marathon was my easy pace. So this was definitely going like a little bit harder. And I wanted to really like challenge the mental muscle to kind of have it turned on. Because in training during this short, like 6-week Dopey training block that I mentioned, I didn't really have a lot of like hard efforts where I had to challenge myself mentally, pull out some of the mantras. And I wanted to get like the visuals of how it will feel running hard in Disney. So I was prepared for marathon day that I could go to the well, when, you needed to kind of, go into that pain cave. Like I would have kind of been there already a little bit for the 5K race. So that was kind of my goal. So I went hard, but I still had fun, guys. I was still, pulling out some poses for the photographers. I ran a 23:20. My paces for each mile were like a 7:26 on the first mile. And then I kind of sped up that second mile to a 7:13. And then it was hard for me to hold that last mile. I'm not going to lie. I did a 7:23. So it was an average of like a 7:23 pace for the 5K itself. For context, I actually raced 2 5Ks in early fall leading up to Philly. After doing some like speed specific work over the summer. And I ran a 21:33 and a 21:34 on those 2 races where I went like all out 10 out of 10 race effort and, just like sub 7-minute pace. So this one was definitely a couple minutes slower. And, I wasn't doing any 5K specific work leading up to this. And I wouldn't say I got to a 10 out of 10 race effort. It was like a 9 out of 10, RPE wise. So I went pretty hard though. This was definitely a lot harder and faster than I've run for a really long time, like a couple of months. So when you finish your races, it's like deja vu for all of these days. It's like the same thing. You get your medal, you get your water bottle, you get your bottle of Powerade, and then you keep walking. You get your box of food, and then you get a banana. And I did a nice cool down 1 mile run after this race, after I got some quick character photos. That's the nice thing about being in the earlier corrals is that you finish when there are really no lines for the characters. So I definitely took advantage of that. I got some great character photos. You're in and out quickly. I did my cool down run. So again, just so you guys know, in case you don't know, shorter races, if you are racing, you need a longer warm up and you need a cool down. So I actually did a nice 1.5 mile warm up before the race, jogging around, went through my whole full dynamic warm up, got my legs really loose, did some strides before the race, because if you're looking to go at a hard race effort, you need to really prime the body, especially if you're in your 40s, 50s and beyond. So that was what I did for the 5K. I did my cool down jogging after, even though I knew I had 45 miles still left to go for the Dopey challenge. I knew that would help recovery. And when I went back to Coronado Springs, that was the resort I was staying at. Highly recommend for the challenge. Very low key kind of resort, very calm. I liked it. It was like very relaxing. I did I went right to the gym. When the bus got back, I did some nice foam rolling, mobility, followed by some stretching to really enhance recovery from the hard 5K effort. And then I headed back to my room, showered, headed to breakfast to continue my carb loading. I not only was eating for recovery, but I was also carb loading for the marathon. And if you want to learn the recovery, mobility, and stretching exercises that actually make a big difference in staying healthy as a runner, I share those every week in my free Healthy Runner newsletter. You can join using the link in the description. And after that, went right to the pool, nice hot tub session, elevated the feet poolside. It's definitely my trick that I love to do when I am vacationing, racing, just lie in the lounge chair, feet up on the opposite side. And then we actually went to Epcot this day for 6 hours. So this was the only day that I went to the parks, took it nice and easy, strolling around, hydrating throughout, had my carb snacks with me. We had dinner at Teppan Idu in Japan, and we were able to get a nice dairy-free, clean running dinner, had white rice, noodles, chicken, vegetables. It was perfect. You just ask for it without butter. It was like perfect meal that I really needed. And this is where a lot of runners make a mistake, because what you do in the 10K can either support or sabotage the rest of your weekend. So now we get to Friday. The temperature was 64 degrees, 64-degree dew point. And I was in Corral C for this with my wife for the 10K. And you really, when you are in some of the later corrals, you wind up walking for a good 10 minutes in the corral once the races start. So they kind of herd you around. And I ran this as a nice recovery run with my wife, who does a 3-minute run, 30-second walk interval. And we wanted to keep it easy for her since it was her first time actually doing a 10K the day before a half marathon. So it was perfect for me to really get in recovery and movement after the harder 5K race effort the day before. My legs were definitely a little tight the next day. I was feeling it. My adductors were sore. Anytime I run really fast 5Ks, you feel weird muscle groups that you normally don't feel sore. And for me, it's my inner thigh, my adductors. And really, they had some nice entertainment, throughout the actual race itself. You get marching bands throughout the course. You get character stops. We were Mr. Fredrickson and Russell from the movie Up. We had a blast chatting with so many runners on the course. And I do like the 10K course probably the most, honestly, out of all of the 4 days, because you have the most Epcot park time, and then you run the whole boardwalk loop. So there's a lot to look at. There's a lot to be entertained by. It's a really fun course. So all weekend, I was genuinely humbled, honestly, by how many runners actually came up to me and said they listened to the podcast, they watch my Run Disney videos on YouTube, or follow along on Instagram and TikTok. And if that was you, please know you truly made my day. I just love getting to meet runners who have found value in the running and health tips that I share. Hey runner, want 4 free gels? Did you know that proper nutrition is one of the 6 steps to growing in your running journey? So if you've never eaten anything for your runs, or you've tried other gels, but you just didn't like the taste, or quite frankly, the texture, or you always get stomach discomfort whenever you try to fuel your workouts, it's time to give UCAN a try. It is the fuel that allowed me to crush a 23-minute marathon PR, and UCAN is what powered my 48.6 magical miles in Disney as part of the Dopey Challenge. The top U.S. marathon runners, whether it's Emily Sisson, Sarah Hall, or Emma Bates, all use UCAN to power their workouts and their runs, but it's not just for elite runners. As a running physical therapist and coach, it is my go-to recommendation for the athletes I work with. Now, UCAN is offering our Spark Healthy Runner community an exclusive chance to try 4 Edge samples for free. All you do is pay the cost of shipping. So just head over to ucan.co/healthy runner to claim this offer, or just drop UCAN in the comments and I'll shoot you the special link. And while you're over there, you might as well grab a box of energy bars. Salted peanut butter is my favorite, and I have it after my runs and before my strength sessions. As always, let's maintain a strong mind, a strong body, and let's just keep on running. powered by UCAN. And if you're getting value from this right now, watching this video, hit that like button. It really helps this reach more runners who want to conquer Run Disney Marathon Weekend feeling strong and healthy. And later that day, we relaxed for a little bit. We actually had dinner at Terralina in Disney Springs. It was really great to kind of get that custom pasta dish. Got it with some olive oil, broccolini, grilled chicken. They have some great bruschetta there and bread to actually start really getting in all those carbs. And that was after we actually went back to the Expo to get my daughter's bib. So yeah, all your dinners, it's like super early, 4 p.m. And then you try to get back to your room so you could try to get to bed at 7 p.m. I'm not going to lie, didn't happen for me most nights, and we'll get to that a little bit later. But by the time the half marathon rolls around, the goal is not to prove fitness, it's to protect the marathon. So Saturday is half marathon day. It was 63 degrees with a 63-degree dew point to start the race. Again, all of these days were warm before. You technically didn't even need throwaway clothes. I had brought my thermal blankets from my previous marathons that I wound up throwing away. I just kept them on. I really didn't need them, to be honest with you. And then I had like one throwaway sweatshirt that I used on marathon day, which I, again, did not need because I was actually sweating underneath it. And we're going to get to that when I was rushing a little bit. But before the half marathon day was super exciting because I had the opportunity to meet many of our Spark Healthy Runner athletes who are running the half. It was so fun to be able to meet people I've worked with virtually in our coaching program or within our Healthy Runner Academy in person. So that was super fun. And I got to give a special shout out to our Spark winners for the weekend, Tracy, who is a member of our Healthy Runner Academy and also works one-on-one with Coach Kat on our team, for conquering not only her first marathon, but the Dopey Challenge. Despite having arthritis in her foot, she was able to tolerate the buildup in mileage, completing her long runs without getting a flare up of pain. And she is just an amazing student of the game who really soaked up all of the knowledge from myself, Coach Kat, that we provided her, and really leaned into our community within our academy. And she really implemented it. That's what I just love about Tracy. And I'm so dang proud of her accomplishment. And shout out to Kat, who is a softball coach and balancing mom life, running her third marathon, and first Dopey, who is struggling with hamstring pain for the first time in her life since she did her 9-mile long run when she started her Dopey training. And then she connected with me to really get her to the finish for her first Dopey. She put the work in, followed the structured plan I gave her, including strength training that really made the running easier to help provide her hamstring the strength it needed. And she was able to enjoy the 4 days of Disney magic and also be a rock star mom and stand in lines for over an hour with her kids for rides on Metal Monday. Then there was Jess, who was following really the coach's orders on hydrating and getting in the carbs. When I caught up with her in Epcot on Thursday, she had her baguette, she had her bread, she had her water with her. So Jess was not only able to overcome her long-standing knee pain and hip weakness issues, but she was able to avoid a new foot issue that popped up during the training. This is where our coaching program really differs from most out there, in that you have a physical therapist on the team. And once Jess started having foot pain, Coach Latoya looped me in, and I wanted her to be seen by a local PT due to the symptoms that she was having, due to the short nature of training that we really had to build up for her first marathon or first Dopey. And that is the nice benefit for our athletes in our program, because when niggles crop up, you don't know what to do sometimes, whether to rest. Do you go to a doctor? Are they just going to tell you to stop running? Do you continue just ignoring it and continue training, or see another medical provider? I help take the guesswork away from you and really triage your situation. And, when it is needed, I love referring to local PTs and collaborating with them. Luckily, I knew a fantastic PT colleague of mine who is close to Jess and who could help her. So shout out to Renee from Performance Optimal Health in Hamden, Connecticut. She helped Jess out. And really the four of us, Jess, Renee, Latoya, and I, worked collaboratively as a team to help Jess be able to get to her dream goal goal of completing the Dopey challenge, really coordinating the rehab side of things, the strength exercises for running, and her running plan. And it was so great to meet Jess in person and experience the magic with her. I also want to give a shout out to Molly conquering her first marathon, Darcy running a pain-free half marathon, Diana getting back on the half marathon horse after struggling with some hip issues, and Crystal for conquering her third Dopey challenge after struggling with hip and knee pain, really getting stronger for running. And now she's ready to take on the Dumbo challenge in Disneyland in 2 weeks. So those are just some of our other athletes I got to give a shout out to. And it was also so great to randomly run into Crystal and her daughter, who was so cute, 5K morning as we were randomly walking off the buses in Epcot. So going to half marathon race itself, this was my daughter Olivia's first half marathon. She did her first and only 10K in Disney 2 years prior. I raced that with her. And my wife also ran the half, but I ran the half with Olivia just because my wife wanted me to run her first half with her. So she's 19 years old, and I was holding her back because I wanted her first experience to be a good one, in that she finished strong and confident, passing people at the end. Like we tell all of our athletes, you only get one first, right? Whether it's your half marathon or marathon. So time should not be the goal, but you should feel like confident at the end. And I always want first timers to leave feeling strong, confident, and looking forward to running another one. And she was Daisy and I was Pluto. Shout out to my wife who made a custom hat for me, which I absolutely loved, with the Pluto eyes, ears, and nose. And we had a blast running this, and we started at a 10:52 pace. So like our finish time wound up being 2:13:58, an average pace of 10:14. We started conservative, 10:52 pace, behind a pretty crowded first mile in Corral C. That pretty much, like after that, we were able to lock into like a 10-minute pace. We took one bathroom stop when we got in Magic Kingdom. We took one character stop for Joy, just because we love Joy. And then we really started picking up the pace, going 9:20 pace at mile 11, 8:29 pace at mile 12. And this was my daughter picking up the pace, by the way. It was not me. I was ready to like just cruise in at kind of my easy pace at a 10-minute pace. And then she really started turning on the jets, which I was just like, man, this girl is ready to fly. So mile 13 was a 7:28 pace. So that is like literally faster than my like threshold pace. I was not planning on running that fast at the end of the half marathon, the day before the marathon, but like I'm a dad, guys. Like I was not going to let my daughter like, leave me in the dust and like run the last mile on her own. So I had to keep up with her. So luckily I was able to like kick it in a little competitive spirit and start to run faster. And then she actually ran a 7:17 that last half mile, which is just like incredible. Right. I really did not plan on like running that effort for the last 5K. So, that was definitely a harder last 5K of the half marathon that I would definitely recommend for most people doing the marathon. But yeah, Livia was just like, she had so much strength, resiliency. She did the training that I had put forth for her first half marathon. She did awesome. And just again, to give you guys some context, because I get this a lot, first time half marathoners or marathoners, how am I going to run 13.1 if I only do 11 miles in training? She only ran an 11-mile long run. That was her longest long run. Right. And she had all this strength and push at the end of this race. So you don't run 13. You don't need to run 12 even to do your first half marathon. You don't need to run 20 to do your first marathon. You can run 18. So just so you guys know, because I get that all the time. And she did like awesome. I was just so proud of her. I just love seeing how much like kick she had in her at the end. And now we have this time together. And now that really, I think, pacing early, I guess her seeing what her performance was. Now we know for like her second half marathon that we would actually run that a little bit faster, that she'd be able to tolerate probably like mid-9s, lower 9s for most of the race. So it's not that dramatic of a kick at the end where you're like shaving 3 minutes literally off of, your average pace. And it's not so dramatic. So before we get into marathon morning, I want to hear from you now. And what is your biggest Run Disney training or marathon weekend worry right now? Drop it in the comments. I will certainly answer it for you. And if you're getting value from this and enjoying these tips on how to race all 4 events and still feel strong and healthy at the end, I would really appreciate if you hit the like button. It helps this video reach more runners who need this information. I also put together a free marathon training and racing guide that walks you through training, fueling, recovery, and race strategy with longevity in mind. You can grab it at learn.sparkhealthyrunner.com/marathon. Everything up until this point was about setting the stage. Now it was time to see if the plan actually worked. Let's talk about marathon morning. So this was Sunday. This was the big day for those looking to slay the dragon of 26.2, or those running the Goofy Challenge or the Dopey Challenge. The weather was hot for this one, especially for those back of the packers. So at the race start, it was 62 degrees, 61 degree dew point, 96% humidity at race start at 4:30 a.m. This race starts a half hour earlier, and what you feel with 60 to 64 degree dew point is slightly uncomfortable, and expect race times to be slower. So that's kind of like the running interpretation. It's all about the dew point, by the way, not the humidity. And I was sweaty, but I didn't feel overheated or too hot. Only needed to use sunglasses the last 3 miles in corral or group A because most of the race was actually in the dark. The course was actually shortened this year later in the morning, as they cut about 1.5 miles off of the course, the Blizzard Beach parking lot that so many people hate and love, really due to the heat and because there were too many people in the medical tents. So they do that for safety reasons. There's a lot of drama on like Facebook groups about should they do this, should they not do this? I'm not going to get into that. But for this marathon, like mentally wise, I was excited. I was calm for the marathon race. I was confident and ready. No signs of feeling of anxiety at all race week or even before the race. I felt more confident than Philly, honestly, with all of the back-to-back long runs that I did in training for that 4-week training block I mentioned. The 3-day prep before this race, from like Thursday to Saturday, carb loading went really, really well. No signs of bloating, GI distress. I avoided dairy, high fiber foods. I did well with all my safe foods. My daughter actually brought bagels with her and her toaster, which was awesome to have in our room. But yeah, my snacks, vegetable sticks, bananas, Pop-Tarts, apple breakfast bars, grilled chicken, cooked vegetables, white rice, sandwiches are all my staples. I did have 1 serving of my GU Roctane drink mix to get more liquid carbs as well, just like I did before Philly. I actually had that before each of the races each morning. So that helped kind of energy-wise for the races, but then also helped my carb load. I actually didn't, you guys who have listened to many of these before, I talk about the importance of meditating to kind of calm the mind. I actually didn't get in as much meditation as I usually do because I was in Disney, I was with the family, and we were kind of busy. Luckily, it didn't affect how calm and confident I felt, heading into race week and race day. So nutrition before the race, I had my UCAN bar, I had a banana, I had 2 servings of graham crackers. So all that leads up to 96 grams of carbs. I finished that 2 hours before the race, during the marathon. And then I actually did wind up having my GU Roctane. So I actually had more, like 100 and something carbs before the race. During my marathon fueling, I was able to get in a total of 3 gels that had 40 grams of carbs, 6 other liquid energy gels that had 24 carbs. So I had 264 grams of carbs during the marathon. If you're calculating carbs per hour, that comes out to 70 grams of carbs per hour. So if you don't know, fuel is essential for marathoning. And if you say to yourself, that is a crazy amount of carbs, you can never do that, your stomach won't tolerate it, blah, 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 blah. I used to say that, and now I can tolerate it because I trained my gut in training during my long runs. I overfuel during my long runs so it can digest the food to give me energy. It's essential if you're racing marathons to have that energy. So you need to do that in training. Electrolyte wise, you guys heard the heat conditions. It was a hotter race. I had 1,000 milligrams of sodium the evening before at 5 p.m. With my electrolyte drink, had 1,000 milligrams sodium. So this is a higher level of sodium content than most electrolyte drinks out there. I had that at 3:30 a.m., 1 hour before the race. And then I used Powerade on the course at the water stops for like a sip or two. And then I used base electrolyte salt, which is like a little salt that you lick on your thumb. I used probably about 4 or 5 servings of that throughout the race. My right hamstring felt like it was getting tight around mile 18, 19, but I didn't stop like I did in Philly. If you guys listen to that recap, I just slowed my pace a little bit and then it went away and I never came back again. So I was super proud that I actually didn't stop and start full walking again, costing me time, because that was one of the mistakes that I did make in Philly. And I was really happy to hear that it went away with just slowing the pace. And I also, made out to get, I really set out after that to get in more electrolytes the rest of the race with my base electrolyte salt and some of the Powerade on the course just to prevent it from kind of coming back again. My water intake, I stopped at every single water stop except the last one because I was feeling good and I just didn't want to slow down at all. I had to keep the momentum going, just put one foot in front of the other, just keep swimming, just keep running, right? My race strategy plan, I was set up to run a 3:43, 3:44 marathon time, which is what I did 2 years ago. So that's like an average pace of 8:32, which would put me essentially at what I did 2 years ago. So for the first 6 miles, my plan was to run about 8:30, 8:35. Mile 6, I wanted to kind of lock in at like 8:20 to like mile 16. And then the goal after mile 16 was to like gradually try to get faster at that point. If I could go sub 8:20. And while I was ready to run my race, I was not alone. I was sharing miles with runners whose stories perfectly illustrate why structure matters. Let me tell you about Ian. At the start of 2025, Ian was frustrated. He was training hard, but nagging injuries kept popping up, and every marathon cycle ended the same way. He would hit the wall on race day and fall short of his goals. It got to the point where, honestly, he was wondering if he would ever be able to conquer the marathon distance. And Becca, Ian's wife, who I've mentioned in my previous Dopey Challenge recaps, when we worked together when she was getting over knee pain after the New York City Marathon, and then went on to work with Coach Lou on our team to work on getting faster. She crushed some amazing PRs in the marathon, and I actually caught up with her 2 years ago in Disney during the marathon day, and she saw the value in our services and wanted to get her husband something he could actually benefit from for Christmas. So she actually bought Ian a coaching package. And once he started working with us, we really shifted the focus to something he had been missing, not just more miles, but smarter weekly structure and strength work that actually supported his running. We built a foundation around his body instead of just pushing through. And that is where everything changed. Within months, Ian started feeling stronger on every run. Then he started feeling faster. And by the end of the year, he set personal bests in every distance from the mile all the way up to the marathon. But the best part was not just the times, it was how confident and in tune he felt with his body. He finally understood what his body needed to thrive instead of constantly guessing or worrying about breaking down. And that is what we mean when we talk about running with confidence and joy, not just chasing numbers. And Ian's story is a perfect example of what happens when you stop guessing and start training with the right structure and support. what is so crazy and all of the stars aligning as I message Ian on Instagram a couple of days before, telling him that I'd love to meet up with him and Becca for the marathon and maybe run some of the miles together. We shared what we were wearing, our flat like kits out on the bed, to keep an eye out for each other because we were all in Corral A. So just like my first Dopey recap episode, the fourth day of the challenge and the marathon morning is a bit chaotic with the travel to Epcot. It took longer last time, and I actually missed my corral and had to start in a later corral. This time, I was like dead set on hitting my corral. I wanted to be in Corral A for the marathon, not have the crowds. And I was, as I mentioned, staying at Coronado. But there was like a bus debacle here because my room was located right next to the fourth bus stop, which normally all the other days, the bus comes, you hop in, get to the race, no issues. This morning, I got to the bus stop. There were like 25 people there. Some people on their phones. I could tell people were not happy. Then we saw a bus just like drive by us. So the buses were not stopping at stop 4 because they were already full. So then we all kind of walked up to the front of the lobby area. And what they were doing is they were waiting for like the buses to be almost full before they left bus stop 1, the main hub lobby area. And then they went around to like bus stop 2 and 3. And then by the time they were like super full, so they never stopped at bus stop 4. So just in case you're at one of those resorts where you're going around multiple stops, I would highly recommend for marathon day only, go to the main hub, go to the lobby, because like you don't want to deal with the stress. Because I was definitely a little worried. I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm going to be late again. I'm going to miss my corral again. And I was like dead set on getting there early. I actually, unfortunately, missed another Spark athlete meetup at 3:30. I was rushing now at this point. I did like a faster walk from my bus when I finally got to Epcot. Had to check my bag still. And I was debating on going to the porta potties near the bag check area, but I wanted to be closer to the corrals because it was closing at 4:15. So I decided to go closer to the corrals. There's probably like 75, maybe 50, I don't know, porta potties in that area. I look at which line to get on, which one looks the shortest. I get on a line. Who was standing right in front of me? Ian. Like, what are the odds, right? Stars aligned. So that was like super weird. And him and I both were like, are we going to have time to go? Is this line going to actually like go fast enough where we can get in our corral before 4:15? So we did. Like, that was awesome. We got in just at 4:15, back of the corral, met up with Becca, and we had so much fun running the first half of this marathon together. We did some like funny like influencer type videos, each mile marker that you see those guys like mile 1, 8:39. Mile 2. So it was just like something to do in the beginning of the race, just to kind of like, make it fun. I enjoyed some nice conversation, and it just really made the miles fly by. So for miles 1 through 6, we didn't have any issues running like the pace that we wanted to go out, 8:30 pace in Corral A. It's not like we started at a 10-minute pace. So that was nice. And we were pretty much between an 8:20, 8:39 for all of those first 6 miles. Mile 7, 8:43, that's kind of the construction zone outside of Polynesian. They were telling some jokes. They had some nice signs to keep you motivated. Mile 8 was the Grand Floridian to Magic Kingdom kind of walkway. We did an 8:17 over there. I know later in the race that gets really backed up, but for us in Corral A, that wasn't backed up at all. They had the nice electrical light display pageant in the water there, which was nice to see. Mile 9 was an 8:33 in Magic Kingdom. Really love that feeling coming out of the tunnel, entering the park before you go down Main Street. There's like no better feeling for the half marathon and the marathon. I just like come out of the tunnel and you just get so much energy. I'm like pumping the crowd up. That's the best feeling for me, honestly, in all these races is coming out of that tunnel. Mile 10, 8:34. We were still in Magic Kingdom. I liked more time in the park for the marathon race than the half marathon. That was nice. Like Magic Kingdom, you have more time there. You go to like the circus area. You run under Tron. That was definitely nice. I like that better than the half marathon course. Mile 11 was like 8:31 pace, contemporary to the TTC area. Mile 12, 8:41. This was the TTC parking lot. And we did our first photo stop with Stitch. And that was really the last that I saw back in Ian till we like crossed paths where I was exiting Blizzard Beach parking lot. They were going in. They said like, they were just going to run at a little slower pace. So I was like, all right. Mile 13, 8:23 for me. That was my first mile on my own in the parking lot. I have no problems with the parking lots. I know a lot of people do. For some reason, the parking lots help me lock into my pace a little bit better. Like I really focus a little bit more in the parking lots. I don't know what it is. I might be weird. Who knows? Mile 14, 8:09. This was probably the coolest part of the course besides like that tunnel area, Magic Kingdom. This was a whole Star Wars theme section for like 2 miles as you're running from Magic Kingdom to Animal Kingdom. And because it was pitch dark, like this was like I was in a freaking movie, in an action film. They have like laser lights going, smoke going. They have some loud like sound effects and music going, and they have multiple character stops, but it was like super cool because it was like literally like you were running through an action film. So it kind of like motivated me. I did an 8:09 that mile, and 8:36 was the next mile at mile 15. And that's where I did the 2 character stops. I stopped for Darth Vader and then some stormtroopers. And then mile 16 was 8:23 pace traveling to Animal Kingdom. Mile 17 was an 8:28 in Animal Kingdom. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of Animal Kingdom. Now that I've done it twice, for some reason, the workers in Animal Kingdom, I don't know. They're like the lamest. Both times for me, they were just like little golf claps. Like they're not really like energized. I don't know. Yeah, Animal Kingdom doesn't do it for me. I don't enjoy running through that park as much. Mile 18 was an 8:33 traveling out of Animal Kingdom. This is where it started getting hard. The effort level really started rising for me. Mile 19 was tough, and 8:31 on the road. This was like tough, like where you pass like Coronado, the side of Coronado where the convention center is. You're heading toward Blizzard Beach. Mile 20, you're still on the road to Blizzard Beach. It was like an 8:24. I was actually maintaining pace with this other lady I was running with, which was kind of nice that we were like running side by side. She's definitely a lot younger than me. She eventually left me. I couldn't keep up with her, unfortunately. But that was good that I was like locking in with her when we were kind of running together. That kind of kept me honest a little bit with my pace. Mile 21, Blizzard Beach parking lot. Again, for some reason, I do good in parking lots. 8:15 pace. So I picked it up here. I really locked in. They had a huge, they had a Baymax, like a huge blow up Baymax in the middle of the parking lot there. That wasn't bad. And coming out of there, I saw Ian and Becca, which was cool. So that like motivated me a little bit to say hi to them. Mile 22, 8:28. This was tough for me, like the road passing Coronado. And I think this is where I planned on seeing my wife and daughter, where they were planning on spectating, but because it was earlier in the race, security didn't let them stand there, even though later in the race, people were standing there. So that was kind of a bummer because I was planning on seeing them and I didn't see them. So I think like a little bit of disappointment kind of like brought me down a little bit on the race. And this was the first time that the sun came out for me. So then mile 23, I actually put on my sunglasses because the sun is like facing you at that point. This was the most elevation on the course where it's just like a slow climb. So my pace definitely went down. It was an 8:48. This section really heading toward Hollywood Studios. Mile 24 was going into Hollywood Studios. There's a steep ramp, steep little hill. It's not that long, but it's pretty steep. I walked it just to kind of keep the effort in check. And then I stopped for the photo stop where they make you like stand on the circle. So I had to stop running. I tried to like run and them take it. And then they were like, no, you need to like stand on this circle. So that kind of like threw me off a little bit pace wise. I was trying not to, because this did affect me in Philly, walk as much at the end, because I did notice that that really loses my momentum with my pace. So I was kind of bummed they like made me stop running at that point, because again, you got to start again. You kind of lose your momentum. But that was my slowest mile of that second half of the race at a 9:09 pace. Mile 25, 8:39. This was the pathway to the boardwalk section, and this is really where I started entering the pain cave for the first time. Mile 26 is in Epcot. This felt like forever, even though you didn't run as much through Epcot. There's no like World Showcase at the end like there used to be 2 years ago. It just felt like forever because of the effort of the marathon and what you feel in that last mile. However, I was like dead set on keep pushing. It was like, just keep swimming. I can do this. I had Jeff Galloway in my head, and I ran an 8:24. And then that last half mile, because you never run 26.2, you're never going to run the perfect tangents. It was like 26.5 for me. And that last half mile was an 8:02. So I was able to pick it up at the end and just like push hard, really kind of get to that all out race effort. I came down the home stretch. You felt like you were flying. My wife took a video of me and I thought I was sprinting, but it looks like I'm literally running in place. So it is funny when you look at those videos when you're like, I could have swore I was sprinting, and you're like, why are my legs look like they're like running in place? But I crossed that finish line, guys, with so much joy and gratitude. I was really, really proud of my accomplishment. There's really no better feeling than a marathon finish line. And the difference in this day is that you wind up getting your medal, you get your Mickey ears right behind me. They were gold this year. You get your Mickey ear hat, and then you go to a separate booth to get your challenge medals if you ran the Goofy Challenge or the Dopey Challenge. And then the rest of the day, I really relaxed a bit and got in the hot tub, and then I headed to Ohana for dinner, which was just amazing to refuel. It's like the perfect refuel after the Dopey Challenge, with plenty of protein and carbs. And the next morning was all about refueling at Boma in Animal Kingdom Lodge. That's one of our favorite places to go for breakfast. They just have a great spread. They got like the warm, like kind of meat carving station stuff. Then you got the breakfast, you got the eggs, traditional omelets, sausage, bacon. Then you got your pancakes, your waffles. And then my favorite part is the pastries. Like that is where it is just amazing. They got some like great bread pudding. They got some like pecan. All of that, those carbs. Like I needed to refuel the glycogen stores for that. And I just love eating at Boma. And that was like perfect breakfast for like the day after a marathon. Now that breakfast was over, we headed to Magic Kingdom to celebrate Medal Monday. And the line for the PhotoPass photographers who take all of those amazing shots in front of the castle was really longer than it was 2 years ago when I did this. So I guess it's getting more popular. I waited for actually 2 hours in line, but it was nice to catch up with some of my athletes and while I was waiting. And then my daughter and wife wound up going to Tiana's Bayou, so they actually went on a ride while I was waiting in line. So then we took some other photos throughout the park. I went on Tron, and then really helped my daughter pack up, and she headed back to college and drove there. And this is where the real learning happens, because growth does not come from perfect races. It comes from honest reflection. And in my post-race reflection, which I recommend every runner do after a big race, you really need to journal some of this. So I'm going to kind of share my reflection with you on what went well. This was an even split marathon for me. So I actually passed through the halfway split at 1:52:58. 1:52:56 is half of my final marathon time of 3:45:53. So despite the hot day, racing the 5K and finishing hard for the half marathon the day before. I ran faster in these races prior to the marathon versus 2 years ago, and I only ran 1 minute and 20 seconds slower than my marathon time 2 years ago on a cooler day. So yeah, that went well in terms of really not falling off that second half of the marathon in terms of like pace. Do I wish I could have turned it on a little bit more, run a little faster? Of course. I wish I could have done that. But the fact that it was an even split marathon, I'm going to take that as a win, and that went well, especially given those weather conditions and running a little bit harder before the actual marathon day. Training, like, stayed 100% healthy during the Philly recovery and racing, a marathon 6 weeks before the Dopey challenge. I went through all of the training that I did before then. So kind of building up that volume, running, 56-mile week, running 67 miles in that 7-day period that we talked about, and staying healthy, be able to get those double-digit long runs in, add in some faster pace miles into that, like running all those runs on the treadmill. Like, those are all wins for me in training. Recovery went like super, super great. Like, the legs felt a bit tight after racing the 5K, but we're ready to push the pace and keep up with my daughter Olivia those last 3 miles of the half marathon. And then, like, in terms of like recovery after a marathon, this is by far the best that I've ever felt. And that was like super rewarding to me, especially when you see so many people like hobbling around after the marathon. Um, like, I felt really, really good. And, walking normally, I really had hardly any delayed onset muscle soreness or DOMS. All of the body, the systems, like sometimes the GI system for me, like, it takes a couple days to like start working again properly. Like, I was totally normal after. Overall energy levels, sometimes I'm like zapped, felt totally normal, like next day, 2 days after. So I think it really just speaks to the level of preparation in training and the fact that my body may be adapting to the stressors of marathoning. And my body felt strong and durable. And that's what I'm like most grateful for, without like an ounce of pain anywhere, like nothing at all. Sometimes it's like random weird tendons, or like after Philly, I felt like my peroneal tendon on the outside of my ankle for like a couple of days after the race. Didn't feel that whatsoever. Um, so yeah, it does reassure me that I can push even more maybe the next race, because my body really did tolerate the effort like really, really well. Other things that went well for me: fueling, the carb load 3 days perfect was prior, didn't feel too full, bloated. The before racing fuel, getting 96 grams of carbs in, the 72 carbs per hour during the race, I think that really went well. Hydration wise, really not having any fluid electrolyte imbalances, taking in all the water stops, just the right amount of electrolytes given the conditions. If you guys listen to my spring marathon recap, I had a fluid electrolyte imbalance with that, where I was cramping the whole end of the race because I didn't have enough plain water, had too many electrolytes. Some of the things that did not go well, some of my challenges were really trying to increase my pace and hold like a sub 8:20 pace after mile 21. Mine was good. Breathing was in control. The legs just didn't go any faster. That's like the best way I can describe it. Most likely due to the fatigue from the 3 days prior of running, and then, running that 5K hard, running those last 3 miles of the half at a faster pace. The legs were just like zapped at that point. The things I was going through in my life, like, sleep definitely wasn't the greatest race week and wasn't as good as my previous marathons. But I didn't have much control of that. Like, not great due to just waking up at 2:15 a.m., 1:50 a.m. for the marathon. could I do a better job in the future knowing that I wake up multiple times in the middle of the night? Yes, I could. I really wasn't stressed out at all in terms of like workload, anxiety. But yeah, my sleep was definitely not what it normally is leading up to a marathon. I try to really strive to get like those 7 hours of sleep. Looking at 1 week out from the marathon, like that Sunday prior to the marathon, I got 7 hours, 37 minutes. Monday, 7 hours, 19. And then it started going downhill with when we traveled and leading up to like packing, all that stress of like getting ready. Tuesday was 6 hours, 5 minutes. Wednesday, 6 hours, 55 minutes. Thursday, 5 hours, 49 minutes. Friday, 5 hours, 53 minutes. Saturday, 6 hours, 3 minutes. And for race day, only 5 hours and 22 minutes. So that is definitely not the type of sleep that I like to get before a marathon. Luckily, I really didn't see that it impacted me a bunch. It's not like I was tired the race mornings. It's not like, I think that really impacted me the most, but that's something that I definitely will strive to improve upon. It's just so hard, guys, at these Run Disney events when you are waking up so early and have to go to bed so early. What am I proud of most? Really coming within 1 minute and 20 seconds of my latest Dopey marathon performance with a hotter weather race day, racing the 5K, finishing fast for that half marathon. Also nailing the nutrition and hydration in the marathon, just because that is so hard for so many folks to get down. And it's taken me years to really get that down. I'm also proud of enjoying that first half of the marathon, running with Ian and Becca, keeping it fun. Like, yeah, that was like so much fun. I felt like I was a lot smoother on the transitions at the water stops and walked less than I did in Philly to really maintain my momentum better. And I feel like that's what's great about the Dopey Challenge is you get 3 days to practice all of that before the marathon day. So it was like you're fine tuned on like, your water stops. And, one little tip here, and I told my daughter this is like, never go for like the first cup. And like they usually have the Powerade first and then the water. So like wait to get to almost the last cup of Powerade so you can drink that and then grab water as opposed to like stopping in the beginning of the water stop like I felt like I did in Philly. So then you're like walking for a longer distance to get to like the water if you are taking the electrolytes. So that I definitely feel like I executed better. I was a lot smoother on those transitions. I didn't lose momentum, didn't lose time. I was really proud of really finding people to quote unquote run with, really to maintain pace. So if you can find people on the course to really just like push yourself a little bit and try to stay with them, that can make like different sections of the course a little bit easier and it can kind of keep you honest with your pace. The other thing that I thought I did pretty well and that I'm proud of is just not stopping and walking when I felt the hamstring kind of tighten up. And I just like slowed down my pace a little bit and trusted that it would go away. So I didn't like freak out like I did in Philly and go into like a full blown walk and probably like walk for a minute to lose some time. So that I was definitely proud of. And then finishing kind of strong, like those last 2 miles after slowing down for 2 miles with some of that elevation we talked about going into Hollywood Studios and really like locking in mentally. Like once I got to the pathway from Hollywood Studios to the boardwalk, like I was like, all right, let's like lock in. And I felt like I was able to do that and like push hard at the end of this race. What will I do for next race? Try to repeat more of like this conservative start because I felt like that was very helpful in keeping the effort level lower for longer in the marathon. And remember, guys, like growth does not come from perfect races. It comes from honest reflection and the willingness to learn, adapt, and move forward with confidence. And that post race feeling can be a mix of like pride, frustration, and like, what now? So whether you crushed your race or you struggled, every race has something to teach you. And the key is reflection. So here's your 4-question post race check in. Number 1, what went well? Number 2, why didn't it and why? Number 3, what were you going through at the time? And then number 4, what are you proud of? This simple reflection can completely change how you grow as a runner. If you want this kind of clarity after your races and before your next training cycle, you do not need more motivation. You need a system. And if you want the full step by step post race reflection lesson and more trainings like this, join the Healthy Runner Academy membership built for everyday runners who want to stay healthy, strong, and consistent. You get the proven system, expert coaching, and supportive community that helps you run pain free, build strength, and keep chasing your goals at any age. This is the best way to get expert guidance from me, your running physical therapist and coach. If you want structured support without the cost of full one-to-one coaching, whether you already have a coach who doesn't provide you strength training or injury guidance, or you have a great local PT who doesn't help with your actual run training and or progressions of your strength exercises that they started with you in rehab. The Academy bridges that gap so you can run strong and stay healthy all year long. To learn more, simply click the link that I have for you in the show notes or just go to learn.sparkhealthyrunner.com/HRA. And here is a post-race affirmation for you. I am proud of the runner I have become. Every experience, the good and the hard, makes me stronger, wiser, and more resilient. My worth is not tied to my race or finish time. I am a healthy runner for life. Don't forget to download your free ultimate guide to crushing your marathon feeling strong. Download it by clicking the link in the show notes that I have for you. And this is my Disney Marathon and Dopey Challenge recap for 2026. My name is Dr. Dwayne Scotti, and my mission is to empower you to feel strong and confident in getting faster so you can enjoy lifelong injury-free running. I'm the founder of Spark Healthy Runner, and you are watching the Healthy Runner podcast channel. Like and subscribe and hit that bell so you're notified when I do another video like this. This training was all about how to execute a smart RunDisney Marathon Weekend strategy to conquer your next RunDisney race. However, none of that matters if you don't train properly for RunDisney. Learn the 6 steps to mastering RunDisney training in the video that I have for you next.